Welcome to Ark Survival Evolved. My name is Xaelfas, presenting Not So Hardcore Harry. I'll be talking over the early stages of gameplay to cover some more information for you, as you see on the screen now. The current version of the game recording is version 0.234.1, with the next patch pending later in the day. And you'll notice I click west, and for some reason I'm in the extreme southwest of the map, at least it seems to me. So, anyway, the point of this series is to show highlights of the game itself without changing any of the vanilla content. So there's no mods in this whatsoever. And, that said, you've seen on the previous screen anyway, the roles are streamlined, but it's all for a desired result. Now, if you didn't catch them, they are as follows. There's no mods for clarity of gameplay. No flying, because if you don't already know, the game is entirely safe in the player versus environment. It's even after what was considered infamous Dino nerf some time ago, it still feels that flyers are a bit of a deterrent from all the natural risks that you would have in the game. And it is a survival game after all, so, anything that's going to keep you safe 90% of the time just tends to take it away from the gameplay, in my opinion. Now, there's no crosshairs for two reasons. It's much more challenging for myself, and the immersion's a lot better. I tend to use crosshairs fairly often for, say, PvP, things like that. In terms of the regular gameplay, it just makes me better. 1.0 difficulty is simply the most balanced versus, in terms of risk versus reward, if you will. The game is not balanced past that point currently, and as it tweaks further, I'm sure the challenge can go up from there, but it just gets a little ludicrous if you go to, fight, a 300 or 400 level Dilo in the early game. It wouldn't make much sense. Now, as far as the XP and the gather rates, it's the only way I can really offer any sense of progression in the game, because frankly, it's very easy to skip early chunks of the game and easily overwhelm anything that the game's environment can throw at you. During the entirety of this video, the rates will be at 1x gather rates. I will raise them up to 2x in the near future, because as the game progresses a little, there are a bit of hiccups in terms of the amount of time that you would have to spend gathering to use the most base of materials to do things. It doesn't really add up to seamless gameplay, if you will. But, it's still in early access, and still will be for some time from the looks of things. Now, the no map indicator is just personally the biggest challenge for me. I have a tendency to get lost on the Ark quite a bit, especially when it comes to retrieving, a corpse. And speaking of corpses, I am not a professional gamer. I'm sure I'll prove that to you many times over the course of this series. Although I've logged in over 400 hours on Ark through 2 separate gameplays, I've had to do this while working around a demanding job and a young family in the mix. I'm presenting this series merely for the love of the game. It inspired me to build the very computer that I'm presenting it to you on now, for the sole purpose of playing the game. I hope that you enjoy the series. I'll read and respond to comments below. Now, if you do enjoy the video, please leave a like. It's definitely welcome feedback. If you dislike it, feel free to leave your constructive criticism in the comments below. I'm not sure if you noticed the raptor in the background. He's going to play his role here after some time. Now, I'm running around gathering some things. Like I said before, the initial gather rates will be 1x on this. So each stone, 1 stone. Hacking away at something doesn't always yield something. I had to punch myself down to half health earlier just to get the first piece of wood that I actually received in the game. So this is Ark, and you will see some frame shudders, things like that here and there. I do have the game turned up to appear decent, and the sacrifice for that currently is the quality overall in the recording itself. So you will on occasion see what appears to be lag, when in reality it's entirely on my system. And the system is up to par for much more advanced games than Ark itself. So I'm going through the motions, making my starter items, and trying to just get a feel for what I want to do. I didn't spawn anywhere near where I was expecting to. I actually spawned at the very first place I ever played the game. I had just arbitrarily selected this area, and on the little island straight across from, well, now I'm facing down, but straight across from where I'm at now was the first place I had put little thatch base and mortar and pestle and a few other things, and I didn't leave a very, very small perimeter, only because I had no idea what was actually a threat within the game itself. And it does tend to get a little difficult at times to know the difference until you're familiar with everything within the game, of course. Now I'm paying close attention to the trikes that are stuck. Things like that. Things that are going to be of benefit later down the road. Just trying to gain a few levels, get the initial tools necessary to get the game started, if you will. EXP bar just gradually gaining. And if you aren't familiar, it's the top bar on the right of the icons that you see. When I first started the game, it was confusing because the plus sign made me think of a health bar, even though that's actually at the bottom of the screen now. Those are for EXP. I'm sure not optimal, but that's what I was doing. Just trying to get some ground, if you will. Now, I constantly look at the Spino off in the distance, being that it's the most obvious threat of death if it decides to work its way over to me. Now, the dinosaur AI in the game itself does tend to wander and things like that, and at times it almost seems as if it is deliberately designed to wander to you, but more often than not I've seen things wander away and just frankly disappear at some point as well. Now, throughout this series, I'm sure I'll utilize the option to destroy wild dinos. It's a console command, and the entire purpose there would be there are new dinos released consistently, as well as more engrams for devices and weapons and such within the game itself to use, being that the game is fairly far from finished. Other than that, I won't ever use any console commands, either on or off camera, unless it's to correct a strange bug. And by that I do not mean item replacement or anything like that. I feel that's a bit extreme. And, you know, being early access, I kind of accept the loss of any items I lose. That's fine. I can reproduce anything within this game, given the standard realm of doing it manually. Now, I'll give you an example. I once had a megalodon that I tamed. I want to say, I don't know how long it took. I had all of the EXP, all the gather rates, everything I was playing at that time were relatively high, like 6 times the current in this game. And although it was fun, it was short-lived. There was definitely left to do. But long story short, I tamed the megalodon, and the moment it tamed and became a tamed dino itself, it fell into the ocean as if it was open air in the game, like it would have fallen through the world, and it hit the ground. Now, when it did, and I mean at the base of the ocean, of course, when it did, it took fall damage, which is absurd, obviously, and nearly died. So I spent a decent amount of time taming the megalodon, which was like a 106, something like that. It was a relatively high-level dinosaur, and it fell to the world. Now, not only did it nearly die at that point and scare me that I was going to die at the bottom of the ocean anyway, it was stuck there. And the only way I was able to get it free was to use a fly command, which is a console command to fly around as if you are, or the dinosaur you're on can fly, things like that. Now, the only utility I've seen in that is that instance there. I used it and got it up into the water a little bit, and it resumed normal gameplay at that point. Yeah. I'll try to correct things in any way that seems reasonable. Anything outside of that, I simply won't do. Seems to, I don't know, take more away from the game than it adds to it. Also running this on a few extra commands that increase the frame rate, like I believe it's being forced to use DirectX 10 and a few other things that for some reason make the performance go higher. Right here in the background is part of a mechanic they added in the AI not that long ago, where dinos will run away with their torpor, which is they're going to get knocked out, or if their damage reaches a certain threshold. Now, it doesn't always seem to function appropriately. Sometimes things will take a low amount of damage and do that. But right back there was the first time I'd seen two dinos both take relatively high damage and then run away from one another. So in essence, both disengaging at the same time and then coming back to fight each other at the same time. It's a bit odd, but you know, it's bound to happen once in a while. And I'm eyeing that Spino. Seeing the blood on him, he looked like he was fairly beat up for a moment. I was actually considering trying to finish him off. There was a frame lock that I mentioned earlier. I don't remember. Let's see, what am I trying to change? That lockup made me drop the textures down a little bit, so you will see the texture quality of things go down. It definitely does show in this game. If you have an absurd rig, it's still relatively difficult to run this game. I am not running this on an obscene rig. The graphics card itself, once the game is optimized, should suffice for high quality textures and everything, but we're quite a ways away from a finished product, so bear with me, guys. Eyeing this stego, almost called him a stego. Eyeing this Triceratops here, wanting to kill him. Seems like a good idea at the time. Forgot about a threat that I saw quite a bit earlier. Why? Why are you eating me? And there you are. Pro gamer. And the reason he's called Not So Hardcore Harry is when I first created this character, the intention was to create Hardcore Harry, which would have been hardcore on single player. Now, if it's my understanding's correct, everything will be gone and create a brand new character. Now, the only problem I have with that is any structures and things like that would also be destroyed in the process. And that's the bit that I didn't want to restart, say, if I fall through the world or, you know, otherwise kill myself. This kind of worked out to my advantage. Typically, I'm not so lucky to have something distracted from the corpse area immediately. Definitely poor timing on my part to try to kill that Triceratops. Not feeling too brave. I understand that they're both hurting each other. I'm trying to see which is weakened more to get the experience off the kill. I'm not sure the equation they use or anything like that. I don't math up my games too much, but I do notice a significant difference almost regardless of the dino itself, but the level of what you kill does seem to impact the experience that you gain. It is definitely not the case with everything. At least if there's a multiplier there, it's more noticeable the greater the threat you face. Larger dinos, like a Parasaur for instance, Brontosaurus, T-Rex, Spino, those guys definitely yield more experience even at lower levels than a lot of these smaller high level guys. Now, one thing you will notice through a lot of my gameplay at this point is that I'm not throwing away things like the metal that's sitting there in my inventory, and there's a lot of things that I just tend to hang on to that, unless you know any better, you would obviously just disregard because of the weight. That's the first time lapse I have in this video. You're going to see them more consistently as we go forward. This is not really a trilobite. It is definitely a trollobite. And I only say that because he manages to troll me pretty good right here. I had no idea the armor was this good on these guys now. Use every single spear I have on him. Almost ridiculous. I was pretty lucky it didn't break on him. I'm going to go forward again here in just a moment. Finally building some thatch structures. Determined that this was going to be my temporary base of operations. I actually do not have any plans for a permanent base. This is not the area that I'd wish to play out the entirety of my gameplay, and I'm sure I'll build a multitude of bases, but I'm really having a difficult time in deciding where I want to build my primary base. Suggestions would definitely be appreciated. I've built all over this map on private games, things like that, and there's just so many different things that you can do. I don't intend to build a full metal base, even once I have an Ankylosaurus and tend to gather up metal like crazy, things like that. Really, the intention's just to have any type of base that would be most enjoyable. Now, let's say I decide to go in an area where there's plague of gigas and alpha raptors, things like that, then you know, metal will definitely be in the agenda. But for more immediate purposes, I don't want to stay in this area too long, only because it's so safe relative to many places in Ark. Finally got my first tame going. Almost 20, well, probably more than 20 minutes into the game at this point. Counting edited time, of course. Only problem is, with only 3 times tame rate, which may sound high relative to everything else on here, I rather not do entire videos of taming where you watch a bar grow. Oh, wait, what's that? Oh, great. Well, at least this time I managed to defend myself. Now, I believe these are the guys that you have a tendency to bump when you're hitting smaller targets next to. And that seems to be the only time they're a huge threat. Now the catch is that they have such a wide hitbox where if they're attacking something else, defending themselves or otherwise, they will hit you as well. And at early levels, they'll kill you pretty easily. Now these poor dodo, just, I don't know. You just have to massacre them every once in a while in mass. I don't know why. It's just, I mean, they became extinct while humans were alive for a reason, guys. I think I know why. I mean, look at them. They just look delicious. No? No? Not at all? Okay. Well, I would eat them. Worst throw in history. Okay, so maybe not. But it was pretty bad. Obviously, gathering up a lot of hide and a lot of meat, and pretty much every resource at this point is valuable to me. Like I said, decided to turn this into at least the temporary settlement. So you'll see this evolve steadily into a working base. I do definitely want to move further into the map. I'm having a very hard time in deciding the best place. I'd like to have something that would be more or less centralized to doing anything and everything within the game. Going forward a little more here in just a moment. And as you can see, we've had that trike tamed up. I've been running and trying to gather different loot crates and things like that while playing the game. And I have a tendency to almost play the game like I have a bad case of ADD. I'll go work on building something long before it's finished. I'll get tired of hacking at things and gathering berries or what have you, and I'll just have to run out and fight. Or, you know, I'll see a loot crate and stop what I'm doing to go get it. Things like that. It may not always be apparent the way I cut these, but it is definitely something you'll see more of. Now, with regards to loot crates, what I'm thinking I'm going to do in future videos is I want to go ahead and cut them and simply use a snapshot image at the end of the video in place of credits and show you guys the items that I got, and it will reveal the level of the character, things like that, so that you'll be able to see them in order and relative to where they fit within the video. Talking to you guys is the strangest thing in the world for me. I do not sit and talk to myself. I often antagonize people and things like that and can quickly flip words back at someone, but when you lack the other individual to focus on their feedback, it makes it difficult to try to convey or imagine questions asked and things like that. So when I say that I'll respond to comments in the video, I wholeheartedly mean that. I would very much like to see what people think about the game, different ideas. The names for the dinos and things are more or less going to be placeholders, because I'd really like to have some other interaction from other players and people in the YouTube community. So anyway, guys, this is the prologue. The next episode will have a little bit more content and definitely more cuts to take out the things that you guys don't really need to see, like the 40 stone that you gotta gather by picking up 1 or 2 at a time. Yeah, things like that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's been very much a pleasure trying to put this together for y'all, and I genuinely hope you enjoy it. Thank you.